Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Live. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Great and interesting topic. I've been kind of on this little rampage lately, and this is one of the fallouts of it. And so today, I'm going to be talking about natural remedies versus synthetic remedies. And so natural remedies. So when we think of natural remedies, they're rooted in plant-based therapies, like herbs, those things. All right, I'm touching something on my screen. Hang on one second. There we go. They're rooted, but they're rooted in plant-based therapies like herbs. And they were the cornerstone of healthcare prior to the adoption of allopathic medicine and drug-based therapies. And so from the historic record, the earliest known medical text that we have of herbs and herbal preparations dates from around 2100 BC and a Sumerian tablet that was found in Nippur. And it reflects a foundational knowledge in herbal medicine. And it discusses plants that were used in order to, like herbal remedies, like it has a recipe. Okay, it has a recipe of what you can use in order to facilitate certain kind of health cure outcomes. So one preparation, for example, asks the physician to crush and grind tamarisk, myrtle, thyme, and mix them with beer, and then have the patient drink that. And so while the tablet doesn't tell you what the specific health issue was, based on the products that were in this combination, it was probably used for somebody with stomach problems or cough or chest infection, or maybe just as an overall health tonic. But traditional therapies predate by the rise of allopathic medication by millennia. And in fact, some subjective evidence of herbal remedies being used actually dates back to Neanderthals. And so there were some Neanderthal skulls that were discovered, and scientists were investigating the dental plaque in their mouth, so the tartar. And in the tartar, they found pollen and fibers from certain plants. But one of the skulls they found, the guy had white willow bark, like fibers and pollen from white willow bark, as well as a couple of other herbs in his teeth. And it was distinct from anything else that anyone had in their tartar. But when they looked at the rest of what was going on with this young man, they discovered that he had a really big tooth abscess, which would have caused a lot of pain. And white willow bark, for example, was the precursor to aspirin. And so he would have received some kind of pain relief by chewing on that bark. But herbs come in a variety of forms, including fresh, dried, and bottled in liquid. In later time, or the earliest ones, in later times, they were made into tablets and capsules that we know today. But preparations that are made from herbs are usually administered as teas, tinctures, poultices. A poultice is something that you would put on a wound to soothe it, or raw plant materials like you would get in a capsule of some kind of an herb. These plants were usually, back in the day, they were locally sourced and self-administered, and which made them available to everyone. And there are three traditional methods in which you can draw out the active components out of herbs. You know, one is you can take the dried leaves and steep them in hot water and create a tea. If the plant material is hard, so like a root or a bark, so like dandelion root or licorice root, you know, those things would be boiled in water, and that would help extract the active ingredients. And they can also be made into a tincture where the leaves and stems and bark pieces are put into some kind of an alcohol, and they're allowed to sit for a period of time, pulling out the good stuff into the alcohol, and then that's strained and then used. Simple, straightforward, and used for centuries around the world. Now, synthetic drugs are completely different, and allopathic doctors, with the rise of that practice, decided to take that route in the creation of medicinal substances for people. And so early medical drugs started out as some kind of plant material, but they took them and put them into a solvent to extract the chemicals out of it. And so usually in the very beginning, that was water or alcohol, but then they would add a reagent into that solution, and then the extracted and then, all right, yeah, so, and then they would add a reagent to that, and which would allow the active compound to precipitate into a solid, and then they were air dried and formed into a crystalline powder. You know, so that's why many medications you take today don't look anything like anything except a crystalline powder, because that was how they wanted to present them. But drug companies, you know, back in the day and today, use a variety of chemicals. And so these are some of the very earliest ones that were being used. And they included ethanol, ether, sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, acetic acid, ammonia, lime, sodium bicarbonate, sodium hydroxide, acetic anhydride something, calcium hypochlorite, charcoal, and sodium bicarbonate. Doesn't sound very good to me. So for example, so this was a very early drug that was made. And so what they would do is they would take a poppy plant and they would harvest the resin from the plant, and that was dissolved in hot water. Then they would add a dilute sulfuric acid to it, and that would form morphine sulfate. Then ammonia or lime was added to that to neutralize the acid, and it was dried and ground into a white powder. The result? Morphine, which is an opioid derivative. Okay. Okay, Rita. Hey. But as time passed, they started to steer away from just using natural products in their manufacturing process, and they began to create non-natural or compounds that started out as non-natural parts. Did that make sense? So, for example, chloroform, like, you know, you watch those movies and they have chloroform on the rag and they knock the person out. Chloroform is actually made by taking alcohol or acetone and mixing it with calcium hypochlorite. These names kill me. You know, so they started with a non-natural item. They mixed it with more non-natural items to create yet another non-natural item. And so I'm not even going to try. I have a whole paragraph here. I'm going to read like maybe the first sentence because it's unintelligible, but I translated it sort of. And so this is the chemical solution, or part of the chemical solution for making a statin drug, Lipitor. Okay, and this is just one section of it. And so it says, to a solution of 2- parenthesis 4R, comma 6R parentheses dash 6 parentheses 2 dash parentheses 2 dash parentheses 4 dash fluorophenol parenthesis close parentheses dash 5 dash isopropyl dash 3 dash phenol dash 4 dash parentheses phenocarbinol, and it goes on like that for an entire paragraph. And like I said, this is just one segment of the chemical formulation of a statin drug like Lipitor. But here's the translated version. So to make this drug, chemists started out with a base compound. And so I was reading you part of the chemical makeup of that base compound, which is already unintelligible. Okay, so they take that base compound that was formulated earlier in the process. They take 200 grams of this compound and dissolve it into a mix of two liquids, tetrahydrofluoron and water. Then they slowly add a solution of potassium hydroxide. Next, they add heptane, a type of solvent, and mix everything together for 30 minutes, probably in their crock pot. Then they keep the water-based layer, which contains the product they want, and mix it with another solvent, ethyl acetate, to pull out the desired chemicals. Finally, they wash the solution with brine to clean it up. Then again, this resulting compound goes through yet another process. But as you can see, my head is already spinning just by trying to read through and understand this. It makes me go, do I really want to take prescription medications? But let's just keep it real, because there's a time and a place for everything. So herbs can be locally grown, they can be wild harvested, or you can buy them online. They're affordable and everyone has access to them, easy access to them. They're less toxic. They have fewer chemical artifacts, meaning you don't have any of this chemical compound that might not get fully cleaned out of the solution. They offer a gentler solution to a health challenge. Conversely, their lower concentration of active components make them safer from potential adverse reactions. The drawback to herbal remedies is that the quality of the plant and the preparation of the remedy can make these things less predictable. Prescription medications, on the other hand, allows for the isolation of the active compound. They offer a faster relief to a situation. Their synthesis is standard, which ensures that one batch is the same as the next. Okay. And if there is a demand, they can sit there and mass produce these products and have them be consistent batch to batch. Bottom line, herbs lower strain work slower, but in a gentler manner, making them a perfect choice for mild or chronic conditions. Their lack of chemical processing makes them less toxic in general. Drugs are superior for acute and life-threatening conditions. They work rapidly and are great for emergency situations. Now, while they offer a quick fix to a problem, their formulation methods leave them more toxic and leaves the patient with a higher risk of side effects. So let's put this into perspective, when talking about working with herbs. Hi, everybody. That's slow-mo. That's who is making all the noise. Let's put this into perspective. Over the past 25 years, it's estimated that 150 to 1,000 people died in the U.S. from the effect of herbal medicine. In the same period, it's believed that between 2.5 and 5 million people died from adverse reactions to drugs. So that's basically 100,000 to 200,000 prescription drugs reported annually. So it's your choice and your health. But I hope this information provides you with some thinking room of which way you want to go with your health and your health concerns. that's my thing for today. And I hope that gives you something to think about. You know, it was not, I always knew that, you know, taking prescription medications just weren't good for you and they were really toxic. I was a bit surprised with, you know, the little bit that I uncovered. And I think just that little bit I uncovered was enough to make it so that I've already made a choice, but I'm more committed to the choice that I've made. Okay. So with that said, you know, if there's things going on and you want to work with someone that, you know, is well versed in herbal remedies and natural healing, reach out to me at soulhealer.com and set up a time for a private consultation. You know, maybe you don't want to take that medication and are looking for some alternative solutions. Thursday Night Live is also brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And stop by there and download my free 50-page guide, which is Jumpstart Your Intuition and get started on your path to opening up your psychic abilities every day. And, you know, before you cut out for the evening, you know, you might want to connect with me on social media. YouTube, Substack, Twitter, and Rumble are the main places I hang out. And so it's all good. Okay. And no, go make me big, make me big. Okay. So yeah, so I have been on this writing rampage lately. And so that article, as well as some other articles, have been released on my webpage, soulhealer.com. And actually, hang out with me 1 second. Soul Healer, there I am. And I would share the screen, but I don't want to like mess stuff up. So the articles that I've released recently, if my computer will cooperate with me. Oh, don't even do this to me. Okay, maybe not. Okay, that would be a maybe not because my computer is not cooperating with me. Well, actually, the database isn't cooperating with me. Okay, well, then never mind. And we are just going to shift gears and open up the chat room and see what all you have to say. And we will get the party started. Okay, and Amy's here. Hi, Amy. And she says, hi, Dr. Rita. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you, Amy. Don, you are here so early. He says, howdy, Dr. Rita. It's me, Worry Wart. Could I have a 2 reading? You sure can, Don. You know, and if you guys subscribe to Substack, I've been releasing a lot of material on Substack. And my Substack is Dr. Rita Louise on Substack. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, anything that I post on Substack will actually come right, or subscribe to me on Substack. The information will come right to your mailbox because I got rid of my newsletter, which I wasn't keeping up on. But Substack delivers this stuff right to your door. So you can keep up on all the stuff that I got going on. Okay, that's your card today, Don. That's a good card, Don. So Don, when I look at your space, I mean, your energy looks pretty good. Actually, it looks really good. I kind of feel like you almost don't recognize yourself because I feel like you are in a good place and not worrying as much, and maybe, just maybe, being a little bit happy. So that's very cool, and I'm happy for you. I feel like you have really just started observing and looking and paying attention to what's going on inside. And when we do that, just that simple act offers us the opportunity to change. And it's not that we're doing anything, we're just looking at it and paying attention. So you're doing it, Don. You're doing great. Okay. And Christine is here. And sorry, I got to get a lozenger. I should have lozengered up before I started. This is a dirty lozenger. Okay. Okay. She says, hello, how are you? It's like I'm coughing. May I have a reading, please? Number 3. And you sure can. All right, Christine, that's your card for today. Okay, so Christine, what is jumping out at me is I'm getting the impression that you're feeling, and I'm going to say it this way, a little financially insecure. I'm feeling like you are looking at ways of changing that and of shifting the situation. I feel like you've kind of turned your energy on. You are kind of sitting on that line between, am I being driven by spirit or am I being driven by ego? I do not feel like you've crossed that line and have moved into this whole egoic thing. Maybe taking that step back and spending some time meditating or journaling on that topic might give you some of the peace of mind that you need, because I feel like it's just kind of sitting in there bothering you. All right, and Yvonne is here. She says, hi, Dr. Rita. Hi, everyone. Hi, Yvonne. And Unar is here, and she says, hi there, Dr. Rita. May I have a 3 tonight? And you sure can. Uh-oh. Okay. And that's your card for today. So Unar, I want to say that you need to relax. I feel like you are using a lot of energy to push something to completion. But when I look at what you're pushing for and pushing to make happen, I don't know that you even really want it. And then there's this other part of you that just wants to be free and wants to be cleansed of all of this stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with you. So it leaves me to conclude that you are actually working on somebody else's stuff and not really your own, that you are taking care of their needs and their wants. And maybe you need to look at that and address that and see if that is something you really want to put your energy into. Okay? Not that you can't, but it should be a choice and decision on your part Not that you're doing it out of obligation, not that you're doing it out of guilt, not that you're doing it out of all of these other things, but that it's something that you want to do. Elderly parents and small children get the only exception for that. Okay. All right. So Yvonne says, can I get a reading number 2, please? And you sure can, Yvonne. Okay. That's your card for today. So Yvonne, I'm just going to make the assumption that you just didn't have a good day today. Your energy isn't feeling very high vibrating. I mean, I definitely don't think that this is a forever thing. I think it's a today thing. You know, I've been talking about the Schumann resonance stuff and trying to understand it better. But from what I've been reading, it's been all over the place. You feel really great, and then the next minute you feel like crap. I know that I have been feeling really good the last few days, but then I got up this morning and it was like, not terrible, but not great. So, you know, so just breathe, Yvonne, and know that tomorrow is a new day and brings a new world for you. All right, and then we have Amy. Hi, Amy, and she would like a reading number 2, and you're so welcome. Okay, and that's your card for today, Amy. So I see that your brain has been at work again, kind of figuring out what you're going to do, and you're back into another creative spurt. Okay, so I get the impression, so I don't know if there's multiple things on the plate, but you keep telling me that there is this one thing that you're looking at that seems kind of the best. I don't know. And they just keep saying, it's the devil, it's the devil. Meaning that it might seem good on the surface, but either you need more information or not to trust it, and not to allow, you know, the potential money that's tied to it, you know, the ego-based things that you could get from this to overrule what you're feeling on the inside. But I feel like you're feeling it, and so Amy, honor it, trust it. Okay. And we have Karen here. She says, hi, Dr. Rita, good to be here. May I have a reading number 2? You sure can, Karen. Uh-oh. And there you go. Okay, so if there's anybody new, these cards usually show up if there is a blockage in your energy, there's something that you don't want to look at, that that you are kind of shielding yourself from. And I am just going to pull. Okay. And so you had some like not bad cards, but this is where I was feeling the clearing for you. So let's see, what all do we have? So Karen, I get the impression that you recognize that you're hitting this energy, and I feel like you've been trying to like nurture it and fix it and shift it and doing all these things to move it out. And what they want me to share with you is you need to just let the whole thing go and allow it to play out however it's going to play out, because you meddling with it, you getting in the middle of it and trying to make it do something is actually keeping it more in place than if you just allowed it to be whatever it's going to be and for it to just cycle through and move out. So I hope that makes sense for you. Okay. And Yvonne says, I love this topic. Thank you, Yvonne. And again, go on my website, soulhealer.com, under healthy living. Let's see if my page will come up, because there we go. Okay. So the article I just released was called Who Killed American Medicine? The Shocking History of Healthcare in America. And then there's what I talked about today, natural remedies or synthetic cures. And then there is the new arbiters of truth, how digital platforms and algorithms are rewriting reality. Then there's our big pharma and Google suppressing alternative therapy and restricting our choices. Then there's Google's health heist, how big tech stole my voice and yours. And they are, in my humble opinion, they're great articles and they're long. I mean, the one I just finished was 11 pages long, single space, 11-point font. But they're good. They're good, I think. Anyway, soulhealer.com, healthy living, or Substack, Dr. Rita Louise on Substack. Okay, and so Vesta's here. Hey, girl. Nice to see you. And she would like a reading number 3, and you sure can have a reading number 3. And anyway, who would want to, you know, when you hear information like that about the kind and level of chemicals that they put into prescription medications, why would anybody want to just randomly and arbitrarily consume that? I mean, I can understand, you know, you have a health condition and the risk-benefit ratio, there's more benefit to taking the prescription. But if you can go like soak in the tub versus taking a muscle relaxer, I would think soaking in the tub with some Epsom salt would be a much better solution than taking a bunch of muscle relaxers, which really don't do anything. They don't unwind the muscles. They just make you relax. Okay, Vesta, that's your card for today. So Vesta, when I look at your energy, I just get this unsettled feeling and this feeling of you wanting to try and do something new. I get the impression, and this is kind of interesting, I get the impression that you've lived, and if I'm speaking out of turn here, but you've lived a lot of your life either trying to stay in conformity of civilization or in rebellion of civilization. And I feel like part of you is just working on accepting this is who I am and not having it be that I'm weird. I mean, we're all weird, but not having it be weird. But I'm also feeling like this little adventurous spirit in you that you want to go and do and have different kinds of experiences that you haven't had before. And so I say, go for it and have fun. Whew. Go forth and multiply. And Marco's here and he says, Rita, hi, you and your hair look, well, amazing. Thank you, Marco. Okay, let's see. And then ERRT Radio's here. Hey, ERRT Radio. Oh, and he says, I'm in the hospital. Please pray for me. Thank you. I'm so sorry to hear that. And everybody, let's just send, some prayers to ERRT Radio. I know that he's been, well, I hope this is okay that I say this, but he just had a very big move, and you were not supposed to be in the hospital. You're supposed to be enjoying your new abode and surroundings. And then he says, hi, Dr. Rita, your hair looks wonderful. May I have a reading number 3, please? And you sure can. And that's your card for today. I don't know, when I look at you, I mean, the first thing you're showing me is that there's something going on in your stomach area, intestinal area. They seem kind of obstructed to me. I mean, that's kind of what you're drawing my eye to immediately. I mean, I don't really know what to say, and I don't particularly like doing health sessions on the air because of HIPAA things. Okay, I'm going to say this. I feel like, considering everything that's going on, that you're holding your energy up and you're working really great at keeping your space and keeping your energy, as high vibrating as you can. And I just want to validate that and send you some great energy and tell you that we all love you here, and we hope that you feel better and you get to go home to your new home. Damn it. Damn it. And then Christine says, your dogs are funny. It's only one dog and Slow-Mo who was making all that racket. And then Amy says, not that I'm about talking allopathic prescription drugs, but natural plants also have chemical compounds that make them up. However, we only know the name of the plant in which the chemical appears. And that is absolutely true. One of the things that happened, which is in the new article that I just released, was that in 1938, they came out with the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. I think that was the name of it. That required companies to submit to the FDA their chemical formulas, their safety information, clinical trials, and all of this documentation and paperwork to show the safety and efficacy, of their drugs. Well, in order to do that, it cost a lot of money to create all of this paperwork and do all of these studies. And so plant remedies like herbs never were studied. And so they sit there and talk about them. Well, but we don't really know if they work. And well, you can try taking them, but we don't know if they're effective. And, you might die because they've never been tested. And they haven't been tested because you can't make any money. You can't sit there and test, slippery elm for its efficacy and then charge somebody $10,000 for a dose. A few years ago, one of the drug companies came out with a product that was very similar to omega-3 oil, which you can buy at the supermarket. You can buy omega-3 oil. But they took it and did some kind of synthesis to it. So now it's a man-made product and not a natural product anymore, and they could patent it. I don't know if that drug is on the market anymore. I mean, obviously it passed clinical trials and was available because they had commercials for it on TV, but you don't hear about it anymore because I think people were smart enough and said, oh, wait a minute, I can go to Walmart and buy a bottle of omega-3 oil for $10, or I can get your prescription that's going to cost me way more money, and the chemical load that might possibly come with it. So yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. All right. And then Dawn says, Dr. Rita, I think some of the meds I've been given in the last few months, I think has gone more harm to me than good. So Dawn, without asking you what kind of meds you've been given, and this is for everybody, you know, especially if you know anyone that takes any kind of mood altering medications, you know, SSRIs, antidepressant, benzoids, like, you know, I want to say like Valium. I don't know. I'm not a prescription girl, so it's hard for me to like say the brand names, you know, but like Zoloft, Wellbutrin, any of those kind of drugs that you might take. Tucker Carlson interviewed this pharmaceutical safety guy who was talking about those kind of psychotropic medications and the effect that they have on people. And he talked extensively about if you wanted to get off of them, you know, what you would need to do or the kind of care that you need to take. So if you or you know someone that needs access to that kind of information, it was Tucker Carlson, and you know, the title of it was like SSRIs and something, something, something. I listened to it last week. I mean, it was, for me, it was really good, but I'm interested in that kind of topic. But it is worth listening to if you're taking some kind of SSRI and want to get off of it, or you know someone that's taking some and they want to get off of it. Yvonne says, Dawn, find a good holistic practitioner like me. Okay, let's see. Christine says, thank you. And then Amy says, it's just as important for us to put forth more effort to sustain health rather than only paying attention to our health when we need to fix an issue. Very true, very true. You know, but so many people just go to the doctor and then just take whatever they say and be like, oh, well, the doctor told me to do it. And they don't do any homework and they don't do any research. And I'm not a very good patient. You know, I go there to get their opinion and then I argue with them and let them do their testing. You know, if I'm stumped and I can't figure out what's going on, then I'll give it to them and they can do their stuff. And then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do. But I don't necessarily do what they want. Oops. Okay. Okay, Unar says, oh my, what a great reading. So right on. I love you. Unar, I'm so glad that it was so right on. And then Yvonne says, definitely low energy today. Yeah, I even took a nap. Oh, Amy's back. She says, that definitely was a helpful reading. Definitely puts my mind at ease. Thank you. Heading to the tip jar. Yeah, so if anybody wants to leave me a little something, something, you can go to soulhealer.com/live, you know, while you're there looking at those articles. Soulhealer.com/live. God. And leave me a little something, something in the tip jar. I would love you for it. Okay. And then Yvonne says, Rita, your hair does really look great. Thank you. All right. And then Yvonne says, watch Cancer, The Forbidden Cures. Huh. So Yvonne, is that a movie? Where can somebody find that? You know, I think it's interesting that ivermectin and fenbendazole or menbendazole, and the difference between fenbendazole and menbendazole is fenbendazole has been approved for animals and menbenzodol has been approved for humans, and they work the same, but they have very slightly different formulations. That they have been doing studies, and they have actually have studies that have been peer reviewed and published about the efficacy of ivermectin and one of those two in curing cancer. Well, if you do the therapies, at the levels that are suggested, the few places that I can find, recommendations for dosage, which is a little high, but still, if it's costing you $100 a month versus $60,000 for a course of chemo, $100, $60,000. I got my hair still way better, way better. And then Vesta says, thank you, and boom, great reading. Okay, Vesta, good. And then ERRT Radio says, thank you. And then Vesta sends, sending healing energies to the radio person. There you go, ERRT Radio. Are you feeling it? Momo, hey Momo. Hi, Dr. Rita. Happy to be able to join again. I'm so glad to see you here today. May I have a reading number 1? Please, thank you. You sure can, Momo. Nice to see you. Okay, that's your card for today. So Momo, when I look at your energy, it's just feeling very chaotic. And I keep going, okay, so what can you do to unwind the chaos? So I hope it was all right that I did just like a little smidge of energy work on you. So what you're showing me is, instead of being here now in the present or even remotely in the present, your energy is like way over there, trying to sort through and navigate all of this stuff. But I feel like perhaps some of the material you're trying to navigate are your stories. They're things that you're telling yourself that are not necessarily fact. So as an example, you don't get a text from your boyfriend, like you and your boyfriend text every morning and you don't get a text from them. And now it's like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, still no text. And in your mind, you're going, oh my God, he probably dumped me. Wonder what happened. Is he okay? Like the stories go on. But the reality is that you just haven't gotten a text, and it might be that they're an idiot and they didn't push the send button. It might be that their phone is dead, or they're having issues with cell service, or they can't find their phone, which has happened to me. And so there's another reason, but your brain goes with, our brains, we do this with the most apocalyptic thing we can think of. And so I would like to suggest, come back, ask yourself, what do I know? What do I know is fact? Because when you sit there and go, well, this is fact, even though you still might feel uncomfortable, at least it's going to help bring you back into this moment and pull you out of some of that chaos. Let me know if that makes sense. And she said, Dad needs me. Love you so much, Rita, and happy belated birthday, birthday twin. And I know. And so, when I make commentary about like they need to deal with their stuff, the only exceptions that I have are young children under the age of 18 and parents, elderly parents that, how can you sit there and kick them out, walk away? And then Momo says, I really like the color of your lipstick. Thank you. All right. Don says, I'm on now. Oh, Sozar and hydrochlorothiazide and other meds for plaque that was breaking up and plugging my heart valves when I got COVID, plus getting the shots. Okay, so I'm going to make the assumption, Dawn, that the meds that you're on are some kind of statin drug. Again, don't know pharmaceutical stuff, so it's hard for me to make commentary. And statins suck. They make you feel like crap. They mess with your mind. I have been looking because my son, they want him to go on statins. I know a couple other friends that they want to go on statins or are on statins and they're not liking them. And I have been in deep search of something alternative. The only things that I have found is that there's berberine, which is a supplement, as well as bergamot. I'm going to say bergamot. That will help lower HDL and LDL. Now, the bergamot you're not supposed to take if you're actively taking a statin. And I would probably say the same thing with the berberine because I'm not sure how they would interact with each other. As far as breaking up the plaque, from what I understand, there's not anything that you can do to break up the plaque. You can just make it so that the plaque doesn't build up more. Now, it doesn't mean that the plaque can't flake off in the artery and create havoc. So I'm hoping that's not what was going on with you. I hope. And then Amy says, love your articles. Great topic tonight. Thank you. You are so welcome, Amy. And yeah, I've been kind of on this writing roll and just a little cynical now. But it's okay because I feel like it needs to be said and I don't have anything to hide and I don't really have anything to lose. And so it's just like, here, there you go. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to work on next because like I said, I just finished that one article about the history of medicine and how allopathic medicine basically shut out all alternative therapies, which is, and marginalized them and made them be like, oh, well, don't do that because they're going to kill you or you're going to die if you do it. And that to me is not acceptable at all. Anyway, guys, well, I am at the bottom of the list. And so I am going to say adieu. So again, if you want to reach out to me, go to my website, soulhealer.com. That's soulhealer.com, and set up a time for a private consultation. And until next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Thursday Night Live. Be blessed.